Hello everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money color commentator. On today's show, learning from the mistakes of others, part one in our series on the #1 New Year's resolution, getting fiscally fit. Well, welcome to our first segment on getting fiscally fit. It's our New Year's resolution. And my title for this segment, of course, is, I can't look at other people. I got to learn from other people's mistakes. And one of the people that I don't want to look at, or one of the models, is the United States government. We're on the usdebtclock.org. If you've never been out here, you should see this. This will put the fear of God in you. If this doesn't, nothing will. I want you to look at this. We're right at $20.5 trillion in debt. And look at that clock running. I think it's like $500 million every second or so. I don't know what that number is, but it's just unbelievable what's going on. So when you look at this debt and you break it down, it's $63,000 per citizen in the United States that we owe to back up the United States government, who has obligated ourselves into this kind of debt. We're in the red ink, or the red zone right now. We are drowning in debt as a federal government. And by the way, not every citizen is a taxpayer. About half the country doesn't pay federal taxes. Now that could change under the new law. We're still trying to look at how that's going to all flush out. But you look at this right now, we're about 170,000 of us in the United States that actually pay taxes. So I'm sorry, not 170,000, we owe 170,000. So 170,000 is our bill today. When you look at this, and I wish I had time to go through this whole debt clock, and maybe we'll do that this summer. I want you to look at 170,000 per taxpayer per citizen. It's a pretty big number and it's pretty sizable. When you go to the state, it doesn't get any better for most of the states. But before we do the state, I want to show you truth in accounting, because that really breaks down not only our total debt, but it also breaks down all our obligations, whether it's federal pensions or military pensions, state pensions. It also includes Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. And when you look at that number, that's 104 trillion in future obligations. So it's not just 20 trillion in debt. It's now over 104 trillion dollars. We've already into the third generation mortgaging our future, and we're downloading this to our grandkids. So it's really an important thing to think about. We're learning from other people's mistakes. We don't want to make this kind of mistake. And when you look at the individual states, you kind of get an idea of the bottom 5 and the top 5. And we can't go through every one of them today, but I do want to go through the bottom 5 and the top 5. In the bottom 5, you have Massachusetts leading the way, or its nickname is usually called Taxachusetts. It's about $32,900 per taxpayer. So if you put $30,000 of state in Massachusetts taxpayer IOUs, add that to the $170,000 federal IOU, you're already at $200K. Now think about this. This is a pretty tragic number. And then when you look at Kentucky, which surprised me because that's a Republican state, and generally speaking, most Republican states are a lot less on taxation in their states. But even in Kentucky, you're at $39,000, which is a big chunk of change, greater than Massachusetts. And then when you get down to Illinois, as an example, my home state where I grew up, you're looking at $50,000. And remember, they tried a couple years back to repeal or try to renegotiate the actual pensions for state workers. And the actual Supreme Court of Illinois came back and said, no, you're obligated to pay these out. And so all of a sudden there's a flight away from or leaving Illinois just because it's such a heavy tax state, and they got serious problems. And the only way to correct it is to reduce spending, which sounds like they don't want to do, and keep continuing to raise taxes. We'll see what happens. And of course, New Jersey, $67,200 per taxpayer. These are what they euphemistically call the bottom 5 sinkhole states. These people are drowning in debt. They have red ink like you cannot believe. But now let's switch over and do a little more happy news. The top 5 sunshine states. When you look at Nebraska, Utah, Wyoming, North Dakota, and Alaska, I kind of snicker because when I think of sunshine states, I think of Florida, California, Arizona. We're talking about Northland. Something about living north seems to keep your taxes down. So Nebraska, $2,600 to the surplus. Think about this. If they just divided everything and called it a day, they'd get $2,600 per taxpayer. Utah gets $4,600 per taxpayer. Again, they're in the green. They're in the black, so to speak. Wyoming, $20,000. North Dakota, $24,000 per taxpayer. And then Alaska, $38,000 $200. So when you're looking at states that are managing their fiscal responsibilities well, these are 5 great states. Now, if you wanted to go through every single state, you can go out to truthandaccounting.org and pull up the 50 state ranking. I don't have time to go through it today. I wish I did. It's really cool to see, and you'll see your own state. I saw where my state laid out. I was a little disappointed we were in the middle of the pack. I was kind of hoping we'd be closer to the Sunshine State, since we are a Sunshine State anyways. But if you want to look at that, you can go out to truthandaccounting.org and look at the 50 state ranking, and that'll help you get an idea. Now, when we're talking about total debt, this is consumer debt now. We just went through federal debt. We just went through state debt. We went through the top 5 that are really good fiscally responsible states and the bottom sinkhole states, which are really struggling to keep above water in their debt. We're looking at mortgages. We're looking at home equity revolving accounts. We're looking at auto loans, credit cards, and student debt. And think about it, for the first time in our country's history, student debt exceeds every other debt but mortgages. So when you look at some of these numbers, these are colossal numbers. I'm looking at regular mortgage debt, which I understand, and having a home equity revolving account, and we're going to be talking about that in the 3rd segment, where you need to really watch yourself and use it wisely and prudently. So, but you're looking at auto loans and credit card debt. Student loan now is huge. It's so big when you think about it. We're looking at numbers that are just over $1 trillion in student loan debt. In fact, let's look at the student loan debt. Look at this. $1.3 trillion is on the books right now, and that's $52 billion in annual interest just to keep this in check, or at least to keep it in force and satisfying the lenders who are actually extending this money. Remember, I don't know where we were going to get this. Some candidates last couple of years ago said that they were going to do something to eliminate student debt. I don't know where it's going to come from, because the taxpayer can't take one more dime of debt onto our balance sheet. I don't know how the government can either. I already told you we're at $20 trillion in debt, $1.3 trillion in student debt. So when you're looking at our total debt, whether it's federal, state, consumer debt, or even student loan debt, how would you like to be a millennial coming out of school with debt like this? And let me tell you, it's impacting their ability to buy a home. In one of the greatest markets now that we've lived in purchasing power of the dollar for homes, we're sitting with this. We can't get this debt off our balance sheet, and so we can't buy a home. It's really tragic. We've really ran up some serious numbers. I think they told us that the average student that has debt is about $30,000 in debt at the low end, and some of these places, some people are paying serious 6 figures. Unbelievable amount of debt that we've gotten into. Now I want to talk to you about using credit, just a little to close out our segment here. You want to use credit wisely. Now, you want to buy now, but you're going to pay later. I want you to start thinking about this. Should I buy this on credit? Well, one good credit might be buying a home. Not too many people can buy a home cash straight out. So yes, you're going to have a mortgage, and I like to have good credit so I can get the lowest interest rate possible, and that makes sense. I may not be able to put money down for a cash on a brand new car, but I might be able to do it on maybe a used car. So I may want to buy cash on a used car and not use credit. But let's say you just can't have it any other way. You have to go out and you have to actually borrow money, and you have to take out a loan for your car. Now remember, in these 2 scenarios, the home and the car would be used as collateral to back up the actual note that you wrote, or the actual IOU. But you're buying now, and you're mortgaging part of your future into the future generation, or actually the future decade or so, depending upon if you're doing a mortgage or a home loan, anytime you hit these numbers. But now think about it from a credit card point of view. We're not talking about something that's collateralized. A lot of this is good faith and on your signature. And we're talking about next year having no signature by about 4 cards, somewhere around March or April of 2018. There'll be no cards. You won't have to sign anything. They have new chip technology and so forth. So be careful with this debt. Right now, we're under the gun on the holiday spending that we just went through. And some people will take the entire year just to unbury themselves from the debt that they incurred for the holidays. I love the holidays just like you do. And remember, the marketers and people that are saying that this is a deal, and you got to really make sure it's a deal to put that on a card. And if you're going to put it on a card, do you have the wherewithal to pay it off every month and then get your money back? A lot of these cards have money back bonuses that you can actually make money. Like, for example, almost every year I have over $1,000 that I can use for the holidays because I've been paying my bill every single month and accumulating these bonus credits. So it's very important when you think about loans and lines of credit, whether it's credit cards, you have to look at yourself and say, can I afford it? And don't let the marketeers market to your soul. You have to think, should I buy it now and pay later, or should I wait and purchase it when I have the money in cash? Don't forget to watch our next segment on using credit wisely, part 2 of our series on the #1 New Year's resolution, getting fiscally fit. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always check with your tax consultant, legal counsel, or financial advisor. You've been watching Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game.